Jack Rourke thought standing up for a stranger was the right thing to do. When he defended a tattooed single mom from cruel insults inside his sleepy Tennessee diner, the town turned on him, and his business began to crumble. But just as Jack was preparing to shut his doors for good, a thunderous roar echoed down Route 89. And what rolled into his parking lot would change everything. But before we dive in, comment below where you're watching from today. And if you love stories full of unexpected twists and life-changing moments, please like and subscribe. The bell over the door groaned as it swung open, letting in a gust of heat thick with dust and exhaust. Jack Rourke barely looked up from his dish rag. It was another scorcher of a Tennessee afternoon, and the air inside Jack's junction clung to everything like syrup. Ceiling fans spun with a lazy rattle, pushing the scent of fried eggs and old linoleum around the room. The place was steady with regulars, booth chatter low and familiar. Clay and Denise Hodges, perched at their corner seat near the window, were already halfway through their tuna melts. Clay's boots were up on the bench opposite his wife, and Denise picked at her plate with the disapproval of a woman who always found something off. Jack stood behind the counter, sleeves rolled, an old burn mark peeking out beneath one arm. The diner was his now. Had been since his mama passed 3 years ago. He kept it the way she liked. Checkered floors scrubbed clean, coffee always hot, pie case stocked even if no one bought a slice. That's when she walked in. Every fork in the room paused midair. She was striking, arms painted in color, a red poppy blooming across her neck, black boots dusty from the road. There was a guarded stiffness in the way she stepped inside, like she'd already been burned once today and was just waiting on the next match to strike. Clay let out a scoffing breath, already reaching for a fresh line of trouble. Jack didn't move at first, just watched her with a mechanic's eye. Detail by detail, the way someone watches a strange engine purr before they decide whether to trust it. She approached the counter quietly, her voice calm but tired. "Just a coffee, please." Jack nodded, grabbing a clean mug from the rack. "Grab a seat, I'll bring it to you." She glanced around the room. Most eyes quickly turned away, some not fast enough. Jack caught the flicker in her expression, something between pride and resignation, and she slid into a booth near the back. As he poured the coffee, he heard Clay lean in toward his wife. "Well, damn," Clay drawled. "She crawl out of a tattoo parlor or a prison bus?" Denise chuckled behind her napkin. Jack kept pouring. He'd heard Clay's talk for years, cheap insults, spit polished with country charm. Jack usually let it roll off. Today, it clung. "She got more ink than skin. You sure she ain't carrying?" Folks like that tend to bring trouble. Jack set the pot down harder than he meant to. Behind him, the woman sat quietly, staring out the window with both hands wrapped around the mug Jack had just delivered. Clay wasn't done. "You from around here, sweetheart?" he called, voice full of syrup and bite. "Or are you just passing through on your way to nowhere?" She looked over slowly, her jaw tensing. "I'm here for my daughter," she said. Softly but clearly, Clay smirked. "She got tattoos too?" That was enough. Jack stepped forward, wiping his hands on his apron. "Clay?" The name cracked across the room like a bottle. Clay raised an eyebrow. "What?" Jack didn't yell. He didn't have to. "I said that's enough." Denise's fork paused midair. The whole diner went silent, eyes darting between the two men. Clay scoffed, standing slowly. "I'm a paying customer, Jack. Been coming here since before you had your mama's apron tied on straight. And I'm the one making the coffee," Jack said evenly, "which means I get to say when someone's not welcome." Clay stared at him, blinking. "You serious?" Jack met his eyes without blinking. "Out. And don't come back." Clay laughed, short and ugly, but Jack didn't move. After a tense beat, Clay threw a few crumpled bills on the table and stormed out with Denise trailing behind him. The door flung open with a snarl of wind and slammed behind them. Silence settled again, thicker this time. The woman stood halfway out of her seat. I didn't mean to cause trouble." Jack waved a hand, already filling her cup again. "You didn't. Clay did. Don't worry about it." She hesitated before sitting back down. He sat across from her, elbows on the formica. "I'm Jack." There was a long pause before she answered. "Maya." Her voice cracked just a little. Jack nodded. "You just get into town?" She nodded, eyes falling to the steam curling off her cup. "Been here 2 days. My daughter's in the hospital, heart condition. They're waiting on the surgery schedule." Jack's stomach tightened, but he kept his face still. He knew that kind of ache, the hollow space it carved in your chest while you waited on news that might change your world. He didn't press her, just sat quietly while she finished half the cup. Eventually she stood. "Thanks for the coffee." "Anytime," Jack said. He watched her leave, the heavy door hissing closed behind her. And though she didn't say it, he could feel it in the way she moved, grief coiled tight behind her ribs, exhaustion holding her up by the shoulders. Jack recognized it instantly. He'd walked that same way once. After the diner emptied and the silence returned, Jack stood behind the counter staring at the spot she'd just vacated. Clay would run his mouth around town. He always did. A man like Clay had friends, power, reach. There'd be fallout. Jack let out a long breath. His mother's voice drifted into the stillness like the echo of a hymn. "Do right, even when it costs you, Jackie. That's when it counts most." He nodded to no one. So be it. The next morning, Jack stood behind the counter, pouring the first pot of coffee before the sun had properly risen. Outside, the mist hung low over Route 89, and the usual gravel crunch of early bird pickups was missing. By 9 a.m., the place was still half empty. At first, he didn't think much of it. Then the days dragged on. By the end of the week, he could count the regulars still showing up on one hand, and most of them didn't stay long. They avoided eye contact, mumbled quick orders to go, and made excuses about being in a rush. He watched their feet shift awkwardly as they waited for coffee, saw them peek nervously toward the empty booths. On the third morning, Jack found out why. "You see it?" asked Hank, the UPS driver, while waiting for his usual black with 2 sugars. "See what?" Jack asked, tired already. Hank hesitated, then pulled out his phone. With a few taps, he turned the screen toward Jack. There it was, a Facebook post from a page called Oak Ridge Locals Speak Up. At the top was a blurry photo of Maya, arms crossed at the counter, taken from behind the blinds of someone's booth. The caption read, "This is what Jack's Junction is now, inviting folks like this while good families get insulted. Think twice before supporting someone who doesn't care about our town." The post had over 200 likes and a comment thread that scrolled endlessly, half vitriol, half virtue signaling. Jack didn't recognize half the names, but the other half? He knew them, had poured their coffee for years. "Damn shame," Hank muttered, taking his cup. "I'm still with you, Jack. But, you know how this town is." Jack gave a small nod, thanked him, and turned to face the quiet room. Empty booths, silent coffee pot. He spent the rest of the day cleaning to keep his hands busy. That night, the bell above the door didn't jingle once. 3 days later, the health inspector showed up. It was a woman Jack hadn't seen before. Clipboard, polite smile, corporate tone. Said it was a routine check. Said she had no idea about anything online, but she noticed the cracked tile near the dishwasher, the grease buildup behind the stove, despite the fact Jack scrubbed it every 2 days. A slightly expired bottle of hot sauce in the backup pantry. 3 citations. Enough to shut him down for 48 hours if left uncorrected. As she left, Jack didn't argue. Just nodded, signed, and stared at the floor. He knew a tip-off when he saw one. That night, long after the sun dipped below the trees and the gravel outside had cooled, the bell finally rang. Jack was hunched over the counter, fixing a loose hinge on the pie case. He looked up, brow furrowed. For a second, he thought he was imagining things. But there she was, the woman. Maya. Her hair was pulled back into a messy braid, and her eyes looked heavier, darker. She stepped inside slowly, carrying a paper bag in one hand and nothing in the other. "I brought you dinner," she said softly, holding up the bag. "Didn't know if you'd eaten." Jack blinked, setting down his wrench. "Not hungry," he said, though he hadn't eaten since morning. She gave him a look that said she didn't believe him for a second and slid into the booth nearest the counter. He poured her a cup of coffee without asking. After a long sip, she leaned back and looked around. "It's quiet." "Yeah," he said. "I saw the post," she added. "Somebody sent it to me. I'm really sorry." Jack shrugged. "Not your fault. They just needed an excuse." She lowered her eyes. "I'm leaving town." He paused. "When?" "Tomorrow morning." Her voice was flat. "Ella's in the children's wing now. They say the surgery could happen within the week, but I can't stay here. Rent's late. Hospital bills are worse." Jack sat down across from her. "Where will you go?" "I don't know yet." She laughed softly, but it didn't reach her eyes. Back to the car, maybe to my sister's couch in Knoxville, just till I figure something out." There was a long pause between them. Then Jack stood up. "Come on." "Where?" "The hospital." She hesitated. "Jack, let me drive. Least I can do." The hospital was 30 minutes out, tucked on the outskirts of the next town. The drive was quiet, windows rolled down, night air curling around them. Maya kept glancing toward the glove box like she wanted to say something, but couldn't find the right shape for it. They parked in the visitor's lot, and Jack followed her through the buzzing doors and down sterile, lemon-scented halls. When they reached the room, she motioned for him to wait at the threshold. "She's probably asleep," she whispered. But the child inside was wide awake, hooked up to machines, but propped up on a pillow fortress, crayons in hand, coloring a picture of a muscle car with big silver wheels. "Ella," Maya said softly, stepping in, "you have a visitor." The girl looked up, eyes a shade lighter than her mother's, a nose dotted with freckles and cheeks too thin for her age. Jack stepped forward slowly, hat in hand. Ella smiled. "You got long arms. You a cook?" Jack chuckled. "Something like that." "She's obsessed with cars," Maya explained. "She used to ride with me on charity runs, had a full car seat in the back of my '67 Charger. Red one." "Still got it?" Jack asked. Maya shook her head. "Had to sell it when Ella got diagnosed." Jack swallowed. Ella held up her drawing. "This one's called Fire Rocket. You can have it if you want." He took it gently, folding it into his back pocket like a sacred letter. "I'll keep it safe." They stayed a little longer, talking, laughing in soft whispers. Then, in the quiet hush of the hospital cafeteria, Maya sat across from Jack, with her shoulders trembling. "I can't pay for the surgery," she said, her voice brittle, barely holding together. "They want 15 grand up front. I've only got 4. That's why I'm leaving. I was gonna try a funding site, maybe knock on church doors, beg if I have to." Her eyes didn't rise from the styrofoam cup she clutched with both hands. The hospital cafeteria was nearly empty, save for the distant rattle of vending machines and the soft hum of a janitor's mop across the linoleum. Jack didn't speak right away. He just watched her. Watched the tremor in her fingers, the way she blinked too much to stop the tears, the way her spine stayed straight like it had no right to bend. A kind of strength born from having to be the one holding everything together, even as it cracked in your hands. He reached slowly into the inner pocket of his flannel jacket, pulled something out, a thick envelope, sealed tight, and set it gently on the table between them. "What's this?" Maya asked, blinking at it. "Use it," Jack said simply. She didn't move, just stared like it might detonate. "What do you mean?" "For the surgery." Her head jerked up. "No," she said instantly, shaking her head. "No, Jack, I can't take that." "You can, and you will." "No." She pushed the envelope back across the table. "You don't even know me." "I know enough. You have no idea what I've been through, what this could do to you. This isn't lunch money, Jack." "I know exactly what it is," he said. He pushed the envelope back again, firmer this time. "It's $12,000. She let out a choked breath, as if the number had punched her. "Jesus. I was going to use it to fix up the diner. New grill, paint job, thought maybe a new sign to bring folks back in." "Then why?" she asked, voice sharp, desperate now. "Why would you do this? For me? I'm just some tattooed stranger who walked into your diner and cost you half your town." Jack looked at her then. Really looked. His gaze didn't waver. "Because once," he said slowly, "someone I loved was in a hospital bed. My mom, breast cancer. By the time we caught it, it had already spread. Doc said if we started treatment then, maybe we had a shot, but I didn't have the money. I was working overtime at the auto shop, barely scraping by. Told her we just needed a few more weeks." He swallowed hard. "Few more weeks turned into never got the chance." Maya didn't speak. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. "I watched her slip away in a bed that looked a lot like your daughter's," Jack said, quieter now. "And all I could think was, if someone had just helped, if one damn person had handed her a lifeline when I couldn't, maybe she'd still be here." He nudged the envelope once more. "I didn't help her, so I'm helping you." Maya's eyes shimmered as the tears finally broke loose, tracing silent lines down her cheeks. She shook her head again, weaker this time. "I'll pay you back," she whispered. "You don't have to." "But I will." He didn't argue. She reached across the table, her hand trembling as she closed it around his wrist. The strength in her voice was gone now, replaced by something softer, rawer. "I don't understand why you do this for me," she whispered. Jack gave her a sad smile. "I've lived alone long enough." For a long moment, neither spoke. Her hand remained on his wrist like it anchored her to the world. Jack let her stay there, let her cry in silence, watched her shoulders shake beneath the weight she no longer had to carry alone. She clutched the envelope to her chest like a fragile thing, a miracle she didn't yet believe was real. But Jack believed. Because sometimes the only way to carry your regrets is to turn them into someone else's second chance. The days that followed unraveled like thread. Jack returned to the diner with less in his pocket and more on his mind. Business didn't bounce back. If anything, it got worse. Utility bills doubled. He found out the discount he'd gotten from the local gas company had been accidentally discontinued. His supplier began missing deliveries. He switched from serving hot meals to reheating whatever he had left. Chili from a can, pre-sliced bread. The coffee grew weaker. The lights flickered more often. He didn't complain. But the bags under his eyes darkened. His shoulders stooped. The days bled together. One night, past midnight, Jack slumped into booth 3, feet aching, apron still tied. He meant to rest for just a minute. When the sun rose, it found him still there, arms folded on the table, breathing steady, exhaustion pressing him down like gravity. Maya saw it in his eyes when she returned to visit. His strength was thinning. She brought him takeout once, then again, watched him sweep the empty diner at closing time with the slow rhythm of a man trying not to fall apart. Then she remembered something. Or rather, someone. That night she booted up an old laptop, logged into a long-dead account, and typed a name into the search bar. Iron Saints Brotherhood, private forum. Her fingers hovered above the keys before she finally typed, "Hey, it's Maya Lane. Been a while? I know I disappeared. But something happened. I met someone. He gave up everything to help my daughter. And now he's losing everything. His name is Jack Rourke. He runs a diner outside Oak Ridge. He stood up for me when no one else would. I don't know what I'm asking, but I needed to tell someone. Here's a photo. That's Ella with Jack at the hospital. Maya." She attached the picture, a candid shot Jack didn't know she took. Ella smiling beside him, her hand on his arm, Jack mid-laugh. Then she closed the laptop and waited. The first reply came 3 hours later. "Maya? Holy hell, you're alive. And that's Jack? We'll talk." Then another. "I remember Ella. She was the tiny one at the cruise night in Nashville. I'm forwarding this to the team." Then more. "I'm in. I'm close. I can be there next weekend. That man's a saint. We roll together still. Tell us when." Maya stared at the screen, tears streaming down her face. She typed a single line, "Jack's Junction, Route 89, Sunday morning. I'll be there." The sun hadn't yet burned off the dew when Jack unlocked the front door of Jack's Junction. His boots scraped against the old tiles as he stepped inside, switching on lights that flickered reluctantly to life. The coffee machine hissed, struggling the same way it always did. Just like him, a little older, a little tired, but still grinding. He'd stopped expecting customers to show up early. Lately, he'd stopped expecting them to show up at all. Jack moved slowly behind the counter, wiping down the surface from muscle memory. The radio sputtered on, playing some old blues tune about lonely men in empty places. He leaned into it, elbow propped beside the register. Then he heard it. Low at first, like distant thunder. Then louder, closer. Engines, not just one or two, a fleet. A rumble that grew and rolled through the valley like a mechanical stampede. Jack's brow furrowed as he stepped outside, shielding his eyes from the glare of the morning sun. And there they were. Muscle cars. Dozens of them. Flames painted on hoods, custom chrome gleaming like mirrors, tires thick as tree trunks, engines roaring and purring as they turned into the lot one after another in a synchronized dance of raw power. His jaw slackened. At the front of the pack, standing like a photograph come to life, was Maya, wearing a black bandana and a leather jacket that hugged her inked arms, and beside her was a little girl in denim overalls, holding a giant cardboard sign with crayon letters that read, "Thank you, Jack." Jack's heart stopped. "Ella?" he said, stepping off the porch, blinking like the sun was playing tricks on him. The little girl grinned, waved hard with both hands. "She's okay," Maya said quickly, coming to meet him. She's still got the big surgery ahead, but the doctors said she's well enough for short outings. A few hours outside was actually recommended before pre-op, said it'd help her spirits. Jack looked from Maya to Ella again, hardly able to believe what he was seeing. None of this would have happened without you, Maya said. He shook his head slowly. I didn't do much. You did everything, Maya replied, her voice thick. Just then, one of the cars honked, and a man with a bushy beard and mirrored sunglasses stuck his head out the window. We eating or what, Jack? He shouted with a grin. That's when it clicked. The Iron Saints had come, and they weren't just here to say hi, they were here to feast. Within minutes, the diner was full. Every booth taken, every stool occupied. The Saints poured in, their boots stomping across the floor, laughter echoing, and the scent of gasoline still clinging to their jackets. Maya had barely stepped behind the counter before someone had asked for 2 burgers and 3 milkshakes. Jack moved like a man underwater, stunned, disoriented, but smiling. Orders came fast, shouted over the sounds of AC/DC and Lynyrd Skynyrd from someone's Bluetooth speaker. A man in a sleeveless denim vest slid a $100 bill across the counter for 2 coffees and said, "Keep the change, brother." The next one ordered a BLT, paid with a crisp $50. Another placed a single dollar bill into the tip jar, then stuffed a check for $500 in behind it. They didn't want change. They wanted him to stay open. Somewhere between the second round of pancakes and a third rack of bacon, a woman with a camera crew started filming. She wore a Saints media patch on her shoulder and carried herself like she was used to telling big stories. She asked for a few words. Jack hesitated, but she insisted. The camera's red light blinked as Jack stood by the counter, apron dusted with flour, eyes still squinting against the shock. "Name?" she asked. "Jack Rourke." "Why'd you do it? Why help Maya and her daughter?" He looked down at his calloused hands for a moment. Then he spoke. Not to the camera, but like he was talking to someone long gone. "Because I know what it feels like to need help and not have anyone show up. So I figured, if I could be that person for someone else, then maybe it means she didn't die for nothing." The camera zoomed in on his face. Jack didn't flinch. It was real. It was raw. And it was now on its way to the internet. By noon, the diner's lot was overflowing. Kids with camera phones showed up. Locals crept by in pickup trucks, slowing down to stare at the muscle cars. Some stopped and came inside. Others just watched from across the street. Among them, behind the tinted windshield of a silver SUV, sat Clay and Denise Hodges. Denise sipped a drink through a straw, scowling. Clay didn't speak. He just watched as person after person stepped through the door of Jack's diner, with smiles and bills in hand. As the media van left, Clay grunted. Place was better when it knew its place. Denise said nothing. Inside, the party kept rolling. Jack couldn't catch his breath, but he didn't need to. Maya helped at the counter. One of the Saints jumped behind the griddle to flip burgers when the line got too long. Ella sat at a booth surrounded by fans of her drawing, signing napkins with crayon autographs. And just when Jack thought the day couldn't bend any further into the surreal, a broad-shouldered man with slicked-back silver hair approached him with an outstretched hand. "Name's Kurt," he said. "Retired contractor. Used to ride with Maya back when we were still building things instead of just driving them." Jack shook his hand. Kurt glanced around. "Place has good bones. Needs love, sure, but you've got something here." Jack smiled faintly. "Used to have plans, not sure if I can afford them now." "Well," Kurt said, clapping him on the shoulder, "I got time, got tools, got 5 other guys who'd volunteer for a rebuild if you feed them enough hash browns. You want a real renovation? Say the word." Jack blinked. "You serious?" "Dead serious," Kurt grinned. "You gave up your dream to save someone else's kid. Let us help you build yours back." Before Jack could respond, another voice chimed in, this one from a younger man with a clipboard and pressed flannel. "I handle logistics for 3 local restaurants," he said. "I've got connections with suppliers who actually like helping folks. I can get you steady inventory, meat, dairy, dry goods, wholesale, direct to diner. No games, just community." Jack stood silent for a moment, surrounded by people he hadn't even known a week ago. People who had shown up, not just with wallets, but with will. He turned toward Maya, who was laughing with a customer, her face lit up in a way he hadn't seen before. Beside her, Ella waved at him with syrup on her chin. His throat tightened. All of this because he opened a door and stood up for a stranger. No, for someone who just needed a little kindness. For the first time in weeks, Jack let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, things were going to be okay. He looked at the crowd, the colors, the chrome, chaos, and he smiled. Jack's Junction looked like a construction site by the following week. The smell of sawdust mixed with fresh paint now clung to the air more than coffee grounds and bacon grease. The old, flickering neon sign had been pulled down and set against the wall like an aging warrior getting its long-deserved rest. Out front, a half-dozen saints had tools in hand and laughter in their throats. The rumble of car engines had given way to the buzz of electric sanders, the rhythmic knock of hammers, and the cheerful teasing of men who knew how to build things, and how to heal things too. Jack stood on a ladder, restaining the trim along the diner's awning, sweat soaking through the back of his shirt. Below him, Kurt shouted, "Hey Picasso, you missed a spot?" "I'm getting there," Jack shot back, grinning. Inside, Maya was perched at the counter with a notebook full of doodles, redesigning the diner's logo. Her tattoos peeked out from the sleeves of her oversized flannel as she sketched, tongue pressed lightly to the corner of her mouth in deep concentration. "I'm thinking we go full retro. Chrome letters, maybe a lightning bolt running through the J. What do you think?" Jack glanced in through the open window. "As long as it doesn't scare the eggs off the plates, I trust you." She smiled, something she did more often now, something softer, easier. Even when she paused, her eyes wandering toward the empty booth where Ella used to sit, she carried hope now instead of just weight. Ella had returned to the hospital to prepare for her surgery. The doctors needed her closely monitored before the operation. Jack and Maya visited her every evening, bringing drawings, photos of the renovation progress, and little videos from the Iron Saints. Jack had even taught her how to video call through the diner's tablet, holding it up in the kitchen so she could supervise the pancake flipping. "I need more bubbles in the batter, Jack," she giggled once, eyes sleepy but bright. "You got it, boss," he'd replied. When the new diner sign was finally mounted, sleek chrome script reading Jack's Junction with a red bolt underneath, they threw a celebration to mark the soft reopening. Maya dubbed it Drive-In Muscle Night. Cars began arriving before sunset, engines growling, headlights cutting through twilight. A red carpet of chrome rolled into the lot as the saints and newcomers filled every space with pride and horsepower. Some came from 2 towns over. Others had driven hours just to be part of the story they'd seen online. One YouTube vlogger with a channel dedicated to classic cars showed up with a drone and a crew. They filmed the entire night, the clatter of milkshakes, the sizzle of burgers, the crowd cheering when Jack took the mic to thank everyone. The video, titled "The Diner That Gave Everything to Save a Little Girl," would hit over 500,000 views in just a week. And the donations? They poured in like coffee at dawn. A PayPal button was added to the diner's website. Messages from strangers arrived every hour, parents, veterans, mechanics, even artists, saying they saw themselves in Jack or Maya or Ella. One evening, long after the crowd had left and the stars began to pin themselves quietly across the Tennessee sky, Maya stayed behind to help clean. She was wiping down the new chalkboard menu when Jack brought her a soda and leaned on the counter beside her. "You should have seen this place before," he said. "Mom used to write daily specials on a napkin and tape it to the wall." Maya laughed gently. "She sounds awesome." "She was," Jack said, voice softening. "She taught me how to crack an egg with one hand and why kindness isn't weakness." Maya didn't speak for a moment. She stared at the chalk in her hand, eyes distant. "I was married once," she said finally. "He hated the tattoos, said they made me look used up. After I left, I thought I'd finally get to be free. But then Ella got sick, and I stopped letting anyone in." Jack turned to her slowly. "I get it," he said. "I stopped letting people in when my mom passed, got used to not being needed. It was easier." Maya looked at him. There was something fragile in her eyes, like a window half open in a storm. "And now?" she asked. Jack reached out and gently took her hand. "Now, I don't want to be alone anymore." They stood there in the glow of the new lights, the diner silent except for the hum of the fridge and the soft clink of dishes being stacked. Then, without fanfare or words, he leaned in. She met him halfway. Their first kiss was quiet, warm, familiar, like it had always been waiting there, just behind the next sunrise. The next week brought nerves no renovation could fix. Ella's surgery day arrived with the weight of thunder. Jack and Maya spent the entire morning in the hospital waiting room, hands clasped, knees bouncing. Time stretched and twisted in that cruel way it does in hospitals. Then the door opened. A nurse stepped in with a tired smile. "She's awake, and she's doing great." Maya collapsed into Jack's arms with a sob of relief, her whole body shaking with it. Jack buried his face in her hair, holding on like she might float away. Later, when Ella was moved into recovery, Jack arrived with a small, carefully wrapped box tied with red ribbon. "I've got something for the bravest kid in Tennessee," he said, setting it gently on the edge of her hospital tray. Ella's eyes lit up with curiosity. She untied the ribbon with trembling fingers and lifted the lid. Inside was a miniature muscle car, shiny red, just like the Charger her mom once owned. But this one had a tiny decal on the side that read, "Ella's Electric" in silver script. Her mouth fell open. Jack grinned. "Custom job. Had one of the saints help me design it." Ella looked up at him, eyes wide and glossy. "It's me. It's really mine." "All yours," Jack said. "Only the bravest get one." She hugged the box to her chest like it was the rarest treasure in the world. Maya leaned over and kissed the top of her daughter's head. "Told you Jack was full of surprises." They all smiled, the moment swelling in quiet joy. Even the sterile walls of the hospital seemed to soften around them, stretched wide by love, hope, and the soft hum of healing. Outside the window, the sun dipped low, casting a golden light across the fields, and somewhere between the laughter and the milkshake, something settled in all three of them. A quiet certainty. This wasn't just a story about a diner anymore. It was the beginning of a family. 6 months later, Jack's Junction didn't just look different. It felt different. Gone was the dull hum of an almost empty diner. Now the place pulsed with life. Laughter bounced off the walls like music, mixing with the clatter of plates, the sizzle of bacon, and the low roar of passing engines from the road out front. The walls were no longer plain, but covered in a patchwork of Polaroids, snapshots from muscle nights, blurry selfies with Jack, Ella drawing behind the counter, Maya hugging customers with fresh ink peeking through bandages. Some photos had signatures scribbled underneath. Others had captions like, "First time here," or "We came from Ohio." The whole wall told a story now, not just of food, but of something that had been broken and rebuilt stronger than before. Out back, nestled behind the diner, stood a small yellow house with flower pots on the porch and wind chimes dancing lazily in the breeze. It was home now. "Okay, now turn it just like I showed you," Jack said, kneeling beside the stove in the diner's kitchen. Ella stood on a little wooden stool, her hair tied up in a lopsided ponytail, brows furrowed in deep concentration as she flipped a pancake with both hands gripping the spatula. It landed a little off-center in the pan, but not burned. "Boom," she grinned, "like a pro." Jack chuckled, brushing flour off her nose. "You're officially promoted." "To what?" "Pancake commander." She squealed, high-fived him, then darted off to show Maya. Jack watched her go, heart full in a way it had never been before. He wasn't just the diner guy anymore. He was something better. Next door, Steel and Syrup Inc. stood in a tiny storefront that had once been a dusty storage room. Now its windows gleamed, and the hand-painted sign caught sunlight just right. Maya's tattoo parlor had become a space of stories, inked tributes to survival and love. Her first clients were two mothers who had sat beside her in the hospital waiting room months ago. She gave them each free tattoos. One chose a hummingbird, the other a heartbeat line ending in a star. "Every piece I do here," Maya had said during her opening, "is about marking what we've endured and honoring what we still get to hold." Business was steady, sometimes quiet, sometimes loud, but always full of meaning. On the anniversary of the diner's reopening, the rumble returned. Engines echoed down Route 89, louder than before. The Iron Saints were back. Even more had come this time. Some brought their kids. Others brought friends who had heard the story and wanted to see it for themselves. They parked in perfect lines, chrome gleaming beneath the golden evening sun. The diner overflowed. Under a string of warm lights, Jack stood on the rebuilt front porch with a microphone in one hand and a glass of sweet tea in the other. He cleared his throat, blinking back emotion. "I opened this place to honor my mom," he began, voice steady but thick. She believed kindness wasn't about grand gestures. It was about showing up. Every day. Even when it's hard. Even when it costs you. He looked out at the crowd, at Maya, at Ella, sitting on Kurt's shoulders, at the wall of faces that now felt like family. "I thought I lost everything when I gave up my savings. But turns out I was just making room for something better. For second chances. For people who don't give up on each other. So, thank you. For proving I'm not alone. None of us are." Applause rippled through the crowd. Someone shouted, "To Jack!" and others echoed it with cheers and raised glasses. Then, with perfect timing, Ella leapt off the porch and ran into Jack's arms. "This is the best diner family ever," she shouted, wrapping her arms around his neck. Jack lifted her with ease, laughing through tears. He looked over at Maya, who stood watching, smiling with eyes that glowed in the soft light. She nodded, he nodded back. Above them, the newly restored neon sign buzzed softly, Jack's Junction. Below it, chrome cars lined the lot like a polished army of memories, rumbling softly as the sun dipped low. And inside, laughter rolled on, warm, full, and here to stay. A family, forged in kindness and chrome, had found its home. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe to support our channel. Also, check out our next story if you're ready for another heart-gripping story, full of twists, redemption, and second chances.